start. Let's go.
Let's do it. Go for it. Take it away.
Recording. If I switch the recording off, so if you need, do you need me to switch it on, or are you going to switch it on?
No, we're recording on the cloud. You're good to go.
Okay, fantastic. Well, good morning, everyone. Most of you know me already, so it's welcome, a pleasure, and a treat. Last week we had, or was it 2 weeks ago now? We launched the pre-launch of the book, and the book called Revenue Architecture. It is a behemoth book. It is not something simple. It is like, Siri, can you bring it up again? Oh, was Will, were you pulling one out? I mean, like, it is sizable. The problem with that is, we kind of like knew it because we did it before. So we kind of like, I can't claim ignorance here. The problem is, I just shipped it to Dr. Howard in Dallas, $87 shipment cost. It's heavy. It's heavy. But it's a textbook, so it's sizable, and it has about 550 pages, 250 diagrams. I just show a screenshot of it down here. We will be going through parts of that book today. We'll be touching on them, and we're going back and forth from that book. I have it lined up and behind it, and so on and so forth. That book is out in second or third week of November. The idea behind this is as follows: is in order to set the stage that not only you, I know you're here, you're committing this hour to me right now, but you got like a dozen colleagues that need to know this. How are you going to get them on board with this? That's what the book is for, right? To help you expand that. Okay, today we are going through to tackle the following problem. And, I'm going to go straight into it. The group is too big for me to go around the room. So I'll just, what I would like to do is in the chat box, if you can type your name, your company, and whether you're a startup or a scale-up, so that you can know who your peers are in it, right? So startup, call that up to 10 million, scale-up 10 to 100 million, grown-up, I'll do that. So up to 10 is a startup. Up to 100 is a scale-up, and 100 plus is a grown-up. And so what you can see is, so I know Dave is a scale-up, right? I know that Joe Sanchez is a scale-up. So I know that Dave and Joe probably would be good to network, right? There we go. We see more. Okay, so you can start picking your folks out. You say, Robert, Top Dask, there we go. So look a little bit at the list and kind of like get an idea of who's in your bracket. And most of you all seem to be scale-up. I see Alex being a startup. And so on and so forth. So look at that a little bit, gets an idea of who's on the call. That's as a matter of introduction. Okay, there's a lot of like good people in the scale-up sector. So I'll keep it focused on scale-up. And Alex, I know you were a startup, so I'll touch, go down. Well, on the top, every time I have figure names numbered. So if there's a particular slide that you want, that you say is like, hey, get me that slide, I need it by today or something like that, note the figure number at the top. We're going to go number up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you know which figure that you're going to need and that we can get it to you. We will share the deck, but sometimes that takes longer, for review and whatnot. But if you can, do this. Feel free to if you screenshot the stuff like that, you don't have to apologize or avoid that the sound gets through of the screenshot. Screenshots is fine, just attribute winning by design session and you'll be good to go. You can put it on social and whatnot. These are all public content down here. What you'll see down here and what I'm gonna depict on is a chart that we have been using that's been created by Benchite. David Spitz from Benchite created this for me. And it depicts horizontally down here, timeline over the past 10 quarters, 8 quarters. Vertically, it costs, on this axis, we see the cost of growth. Now, what you'll see most commonly, this is public SaaS companies. This is about 78, 79 companies of the public, the usual suspects. And what you'll see down here is the normal number that is reported, which is 44, 45% of revenue, of the total revenue goes to the marketing and sales organization. Public companies, you can pull this off. This is no secret here or anything, okay? And it just is the cost of marketing and sales divided by the total amount of revenue. And what you'll see that number actually fluctuated very slightly, right? And 43, 44, 45. and so on. Now, why is that? It's for logical reason. When you divide the number by a couple of $100 million to a couple of $1 billion, that number doesn't fluctuate too much because the anchoring figure is just way too big, right? You're not going to jump from $16 billion in revenue to $36 billion in revenue overnight. So that will, there's a lot of anchoring value there. What David did though, and what we have been working on, is what if we only divide that by the cost of net new revenue? What is the new amount that is given? Now, cost of growth, I want you to be realistic here. Cost of growth down here comes from COG, comes from the marketing and sales COGS cost, and is different than COGS. Publicly reported company GAAP compliance. We have COGS, we have marketing and sales costs. Cost of retention falls under COGS. Therefore, the cost of retention renewals is not included in this. Cost from expansion, according to GAAP principles, falls under marketing and sales. So with that caveat, understand that what you're looking at down here. What we see is that the revenue, that the cost is actually growing. This is the problem we're dealing with. This means that the adjustment we have made is not working. That's the problem. Problem is the adjustment we made is not working. What is the adjustment we made? Cost cutting. Cost cutting does not work. Now, at first glance, like if we look back at SaaSter and we see the reports being given, it's like, hey, it is working, but they're looking at a different metric. They're looking at free cash flow. They're saying, no, we drop costs and free cash flow is going up. We're now generating 10, as a free cash flow margin, we went up from 4 or 5% free cash flow margin to 10, 11, 12%, which is a valid point. And from a VC perspective, that is an absolutely okay perspective. There's nothing wrong with that. It just doesn't help if you're a CEO of a revenue leader. I mean, the fact that we're spinning off cash, look, we're a startup or scale up. We're supposed to invest that in growth. The problem is, we're not seeing that back. We're not seeing that this revenue is generating growth right now as efficient as it used to be. Now, the last what I said is actually where the problem gets and what we see a lot of interaction on the internet on. What that last problem relates to is, and what I like to say is like, trust your own eyes, right? Trust your own eyes. Like, why is it not working? Like, look, I can tell you, I am not opening up more emails, spam emails. I am every day, this morning again, it spends 5 to 10 minutes to just get all the spam, and I feel nowadays, I don't know if I'm the only one, if people have started to ignore my spam rejections, right? I told you I'm unsubscribing. I still get 4, 5, 6, 7 messages from them. So what we see is that this email open rate is not going up. Doesn't matter what the market reports. If you trust your own eyes, if you yourself, are you clicking on text messages from an unknown vendor? Absolutely not. Have you used the Apple feature to switch off calls from unidentified callers so they don't go straight to you? Yes, you have, right? So you're not taking on direct cold calls. You're not taking on text messages. You're not opening emails. That's why that number has become 228%. That's what you're seeing. Trust your own eyes. Now, we see this. We see reports on LinkedIn. We hear, like it takes 2,000 outbound touches before I get in for a qualified opportunity instead of like 200, which was a few years ago. I saw Sam Jacobs, my beloved friend from Pavilion, speak about that. That is all an outcome of that, right? It's all the same thing. What it means is our GTM motion is not working. The GTM motions that we have been using are not working any longer. It doesn't matter, now it may work in some vertical segment, right? I'm not saying as if you're vertical SaaS and you're selling to trucking firms, there it may work. But if we look at the industry as a whole, that is not working. That is the problem that we're going to solve today. For that, I have this agenda for which I'm going to use the data model to help us solve that, to start solving it. Folks, what we're about to embark on is an 18 months to two-year journey to reset and get the growth back up and get healthy growth back up. That's what the journey is going to be about. It's a two-year journey. There's no, if anybody thinks, oh, I got the trick, I'm going to deploy PLG. PLG is not a lead gen campaign, nor is it the sales methodology. AI is not going to, since it's applied to everybody, AI is going to level it up, but it's going to level it up for everybody. Therefore, it doesn't make any difference. So those things are not going to make a huge impact as if you want to stand out in the market, if you want to keep growing fast. What will is the following. So I'm going to step through these three topics. I'm going to talk about revenue factory, data model. I'm going to show you some examples of how to make it work. So first, I'm going to talk about the factory. Now, it's important for me to differentiate when we say we're going to do lots of email, that feels like a factory line, and we're going to treat it as a factory.
Yeah,
Those are two.
I'm just doing this webinar, but I'm keeping an eye on the thing.
Those are two different things, right? And so I'm going to separate those two different things. I'm going to separate what a factory is. Essentially, you know, like we all know the picture down here, or many of you may know the picture. You know, factory one is when we went to the spinning wheel and we used water and steam to power the spinning wheel, mechanization. Then we went to electrification, electrical engine, mass production, and so on and so forth. Most of it, and what you're going to see, we are operating today in the third and the fourth generation of a factory. Factories essentially have been a really good mindset of how the industry as a whole, including ourselves, have moved forward. We have just not obeyed to the factory laws to the same extent in GTM as other parts of the company has done, as the engineering department has done, as the design department has done with design thinking. All these things have progressed, but we, the GTM team, have not. Most of the work that we're doing has been taking place today in the third industrial generation, automation, automated email sending out, sequence sending, all that takes place in automation. What we are currently moving is AI. That's the fourth industrial industrialization. So that's where we're at. We are making that leap. Much of the work that we have been doing today is been doing more, not doing better. We've been doing more. So keep in mind, we're going to use the factory, which is not like, oh, the absolute horrid working conditions, blah, 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 and the mass production. That's not just what we're going to take a look at. We're going to look at, hey, it has set up a quality system. Now, when we look at the goal from the factory, factories have three specific goals: produce more, lower the cost, and drive quality. Okay? This picture I'm presenting to you down here, this is where the entire machine is about to go wrong again for the second time. So what you'll see is we focus primarily on productivity. Productivity was all about grow faster, higher velocity, and so on. We call that scalable growth. You could scale. The more money you gave me, the more I grow. This is where VCs came in and says, hey, if I give you twice as much money, can you grow twice as fast? Heck yeah, give me twice as much money, I'll do that, right? And that's the age where we're coming from, to grow at all cost. Grow at all cost did not include cost by the very nature of it. We are currently moving from a scalable maturity stage to a sustainable maturity stage. So if you look back at SaaS or you look at all the presentations, pick one after another, particularly of the VC ones, they are all talking about cost-efficient growth, sustainable growth, and they're all based on cost. Now, here's the problem. What happens if I ask you to grow faster at lower cost? Because that is about to happen. All these companies are about to start growing faster, but they are not given the cost structure any longer. Folks, that is when you get low cost manufacturing. We get churn. Thank you very much. Churn. And what is churn? Churn is the result of you having the wrong product, or your product is not delivering the expectation level. I just want you to understand that the fundamental thing that we're about to send this entire market off, we're oversteering on cost. And what we're going to do is, if we do not make quality of the product a vital part of our conversation moving forward, then we're going to see an increased growth at a decreasing cost, which means we're going to get bad product. The problem with recurring revenue product versus that of a regular factory, and I want you to think this through with me. The problem is, if I make bad bicycles and I send them, I don't have a recurring revenue stream on bicycles. It may hit me like 2 or 3 years later. It may hit me hard as the quality is dropping. If I have recurring revenue, it hits me on my renewal right away. So quality and renewals in our world are directly related with each other. Now, again, I encourage you to listen to all the VC talk. It is all about growth and cost. But at no point in time is it about what we deliver to the customer. Now, here's the trick, and what revenue architecture, the book is about, and what we're describing is, look, if the first principle of recurring revenue, if it's true that the first principle of recurring revenue, that it is the result of recurring impact, which like today is, I have not been proven wrong on this first principle. That means if we deliver recurring impact, we will get recurring revenue out of that. That means if we focus on quality, we get revenue. Why is that so important? Because as I grow up on the growth stage, as I go up on that growth curve that you see down here, every one of you, startups, scale-ups, we're all some dots somewhere along this line. We're, I'll copy this one, but we're just some dots somewhere along this line, this X marks the spot. Some of you are here. And as you go up on that chart, right? As you go up, you keep, you want to keep growing. That's the reason why you go up on the S curve. But at the same time, you cannot, as your growth rate goes up, you got to get your costs to come down. Well, if you keep hiring more salespeople and you keep making your growth dependent on more acquisition growth, then your cost of growth is going to keep going and growing and growing. Why? Because, like when you were all down here in the beginning, you had one or two superstars and they were able to do it for you. Down here at the back end, you don't have one or two superstars, you have more superstars, but your percentage of superstars is so low that your average performance has gone down. And as a result, you are running less efficient and your cost of growth is going to go up. And so the reason why you need to get at that back end of the S curve is your customers have started to contribute to growth. Your customers have said, oh, let me help you. Let me make a recommendation. And it, like we don't have programs today for it that run that other than PLG. But, like most people that are in this stage down here, you're dependent on your customers depicting impact. And that's what caused the growth cost to come down, because the cost of expansion and renewal are a fraction of the cost of acquisition. That's how this machine is designed to work. Now, what we have done up to this point is with the growth in any and all costs, which is reflected by scalability, we have historically, no longer today, but we've historically run into that IPO debt set, or if your WeWork, you ran way beyond it, right? You go like, it's all about growth at any and all cost. Where we forgot is that we actually need to mature through these phases. We need to mature to, hey, in the beginning, we need to grow fast. Obviously, if you get from 0 to 10, it's all about grow. After $10 million, you need to start taking into account sustainability. Cost is important. And at some point in time, you need to make sure that your growth from your customer starts to exceed your growth from acquisition, because the cost of that growth is lower. That's how this machine is built to work. That's the recurring revenue machine. Most organizations have not switched to that, and that means that the GTM function of grow at any and all costs breaks the system and has broken the system. That is what we see in these numbers. And the problem is not getting fixed. The problem is only it's going to get worse. Okay? That's the problem we're trying to solve today. Okay. In order to do that, we got to start thinking differently. And what I pointed out to you down here, and what you'll see coming back, is that recurring revenue is a result of recurring impact, is the basic fundamental principle that if we build our companies on that fundamental principle, you have the highest chance of winning, of succeeding. Now, will every company succeed? Of course not. Companies should fail. I get that. There's a normal part. Companies, probably 10 to 20% of the companies should succeed, and there's a high chance of failing. I get that. We're currently at 1.7% success win rate of companies who achieved, with a few $1 million, achieve $100 million, something like very low. The problem is that not that we should not expect failure, we should, but hiring and deploying the wrong GTM function, should not be one reason where a company fell. That we're going to try to solve. Here's what I want you to take away. Beyond $10 million in ARR, we have seen again and again, your company is operating as a revenue factory. Your revenue factory has 3 goals: produce efficiently and deliver impact to your customers. That's it. That's a recurring revenue factory. It is way earlier than we ever thought. Now, for those of you who are scale-ups, the 10 million in ARR applies to a GTM motion, not just to a factory, not just to your total overall number. Every one of your GTM motions are going through this. You're launching a second GTM motion, you were SMB, you're going to enterprise. That enterprise goes again through that whole same cycle. You launch another motion, another region even. You're launching Europe. Europe starts at $0 million. Again, you start to, first scale it, then make it sustainable, then make it durable. Everything. So your revenue is that you're building is a whole stack of these as models dependent on GTM motion and dependent on region. There are other, sometimes it may be a vertical market. For example, for those of you who have experience of selling to the US federal market by itself is a whole new GTM motion. Like just selling into that market require a whole separate motion for you to get educated on. That mindset is what I mean with the factory mindset. That factory mindset allows us now to apply and say, now we know what the role of AI is. Now we know what the role of technology is, where cloud fits in, and so on and so forth. This whole picture of machine learning and AI suddenly becomes clear and present. We need it to help us not only to scale, but also to make it sustainable and also to make it durable. That's the role of machine learning and AI, not just to scale faster at a lower cost, AKA replace my SDRs, 5 SDRs with 1 SDR armed with ChatGPT. That may work for achieving scalable growth, but it won't achieve durable growth. Okay, with that tackled, I'm going to go to the next step, to the data model. Now, in the revenue book, for those of you who are familiar with it, there are 6 models that we describe. These 6 models are the revenue model. In other words, how are you charging? Are you charging a recurring fee? Are you charging an upfront fee? How are you charging? The data model, which we're going to talk about. The mathematical model, which sits on top of the data model. Then we have to go to the operating model and so on and so forth. We have these 6 models. Today, we're only tackling one model of these. These models have proven to work, have now been peer tested by many of you for the past years. I'm going to go into the data model, and what I'm going to lay, I'm going to lay the fundamentals, and then I'm going to apply real life scenarios to it. I'm going to say, okay, now look at what happens to your inbound motion and look at and so on and so forth. But I'm first laying the foundation. And what I'm doing here is to explain to you very basic and simply. This is a super important thing for all of you who run your companies, your CEOs, CROs, who you're on the call. You cannot make this bow tie replace the marketing and sales funnel. It won't work. We're not ready to replace something. We need to extend the marketing and sales funnel. We need to build on that, what it's doing. What you'll see here is that the bow tie simply extends the marketing and sales funnel, right? This marketing and sales funnel simply is the first 3 stages. We're not going to change anything. If you already have something there, keep it. Please keep it. Don't change that. But you need to extend that. And why? To cover that impact. That impact needs to be covered. Now, for the savants, for the people that are deep into revenue, I want you to understand the following. This thing that I'm here, I'm going to make it blue to highlight it. This is a fundamental understanding. This piece is a fundamental understanding to pick up on. The left side of the bow tie, which you call the marketing and sales funnel, is all in the value domain. Value proposal, value selling. In what value is the promise of impact. It is not the same as impact. It is the promise of impact. On the right side, we are there in order to deliver down that promise. This is the impact domain. That's why the left and the right is different. Both sides work very differently. That means that if I use a salesperson from the right side and I start applying it to upsell and cross-selling on the right side, that has a high likelihood of not working. You're essentially cost model-wise, you're already doing it wrong because you're picking a person, a value domain expert that you're paying a premium price for, and you're applying that to the impact-based domain. These things won't work. Similarly, you can't expect somebody on the right side to start selling on the left side. Different thing. Down here, the success rate is often measured in 10%, 12%, 15%, 18%. Down here, a renewal should have a success rate of 96, 97%. 2 different ball games, okay? They work differently with each other. Impact is the realization of value. Value is the impact. To give you an idea, down here, it's all about going faster. Down here, it's all about keeping the customer longer. Faster on the left, longer on the right. Keep that in mind. 2 different domains. So the bow tie, all it does, it simply says, hey, we have awareness, education, and selection on the left, and we're now going to extend it on the right with onboarding, adoption, and expansion. All familiar with it? This is not a major new thing. We're just mapping that correctly. Notice there is one major change. This change is a fundamental change in thinking. The middle of it is considered a mutual commit. It's not a close, not an end, it's not a win. It's a mutual commit. Why? because both parties need to commit to something. What do they commit to? Impact. That's what they commit to. I commit. If I buy your product, then you're committing to me that you can deliver and you solve on my problem. What is that problem? That's the impact you're going to deliver. You're going to solve my problem. That means you'll commit. Okay, this simple thing allows us to understand that when we achieve that recurring revenue, we're going to get that recurring impact. And the problem down here is this, that the marketing and sales funnel ends where where recurring revenue starts. That is the fundamental challenge that we're trying to solve. And as a result, what we see is because we're not working off that standard impact base, we are working all over the map. We see that the journey that everybody's on has been very different. All these departments have historically worked very much inside silos, right? And these silos have their data metrics at the outcome. And think about the following. Do you think that when you're getting a 30, 40, $50 million funding round, do you think that the silos in your companies are getting bigger or smaller? In most cases, they're getting a lot bigger. Your marketing department is going to get a lot more on an island, and your customer success department, everybody with that additional funding is only building those fiefdoms bigger and bigger and bigger. And so in the end, what we see down here is different departments run different methods and different methodologies. Your SMB team in Europe may run on Challenger, or on they would probably run on solution selling or something like that, where your enterprise team in the US works off Challenger or something like that. Like, you got two methodologies, talking two different languages, needing two different kinds of content, and using different metrics. It's a different approach. This is the reason why if we approach GTM, we're approaching it the wrong way. We get metrics from an ABM campaign conversion rate versus an inbound base. Like, all these data signals are all mixed, and worst of all, they're all going to go to the top line reported to a VC. What is the total investment in marketing and sales, calculating our CAC on a corporate level, while this is all these minute different departments that are causing this. This is a problem. To do that, to align that, I'm going to simply say it's impact. Step number one that we need to agree to, the common language that we're going to work off, is impact. Every department, every part of the organization needs to be aligned along establishing impact, delivering impacts, getting to first impact, have the customer buy on the impact that we promise, aka value, prioritize, can we help the customer on impact, all the way to the ICP, defining what is the impact that we provide for this ICP. Okay, I'm going to give you one very critical, simple thing. I assume that 99% of all of you can record the calls and have your CS calls being recorded. There should be no problem, right? No problem at all. What I want you to do is the following. I want you to create 3 questions, 3 simple questions. A CS rep is being tasked to ask a customer on impact. May I ask, for example, so thank you very much. Before we wrap up today's renewal call, may I ask, what is the impact that you got out of our product over the past year? Question like that, 3 questions. Let your recorded calls pick that up. Train your AI to get the answer to that question, summarized and sent to you every month. What is the impact we deliver to our customers? Okay. By that, you're now closing the loop between what's happening here. What are the customers buying on? What are the customers renewing on? What is the impact they're getting? And you're feeding that back to who your ICPs are, what you're buying on, how you're pricing, how you're prioritizing, and stuff like that. Don't do that manually, because a human being has an opinion, will listen to the call and say, no, it's not really what they said. This is no. I want literally the words that they were using. I want an AI system. I do not need an opinion to get every month. There should be at least, for those of you who are scale up, you should at least have a couple of 100 CS call renewal calls a month. You get a signal every month. What is the impact that the customers are getting out of this? And you feed that back into the organization. Before we start, which GTM motion works and how are we getting to the customer? First, listen, what is the impact they're renewing on? Not buying on, renewing on. Okay, that gets us to the model, because if I have now created that overall picture, I now have created a normalized language. I have a standardized model with the bow tie. I have now closed the loop in this example I gave you. Now I can start measuring data. Okay? And the generic idea behind measuring the data is look, if we're all working off a standardized model, but we're not working off a standardized model because I got my ABM campaign using very different metrics than my PLG campaign than my SDR AE inbound. I like it. Everybody's using different metrics. Everybody's saying different things. Everybody's, PQL, MQA, SQL, right? Like, how in the world are we going to even compare all these things? Good news, we're going to do that by creating a standardized model. This model is what everybody in the organization should build to. When you show up in a meeting and you say, we're going to only talk about the marketing and sales funnel, your only focus is on acquisition. We know that growth in scale-up mode comes from acquisition, retention, and expansion, 3 sources. So we can't talk into our monthly meetings about just what the marketing and sales funnel looks like. We need to see, no, what does the bow tie look like, right? What does the entire journey look like? That means we need these metrics. Now look what I'm going to do. See here at the bottom, those are volumetric. VM1 is just an abbreviation standing for volumetric. It means VM1, which most likely is prospects. VM2, we can start discussing what that is, and VM3. These are volume metrics. In between 2 volume metrics, I got conversion metrics. Again, nothing ridiculous, nothing complex down here, folks. I'm just the conversion rate from one to another is the multiplication by an X percentage conversion rate, right? Like that's it. And the one that you probably know very well, CR4 down there, and make it high, that's the win rate. And what you're going to see, the combination of CR7, CR8 in a second, that's NRR. If you exclude the expansion from that, CR7, GRR, right? Like this is you're going to see all these numbers back. I just want you to know, by first creating what is a standard language and then laying on top of that what the GTM motion is, I now have an ability to start measuring and talking scientifically and making sure that I'm measuring the right thing and comparing the right thing. So when I start seeing that things work, I know what I'm investing in. That's where I'm trying to get to. Now, we're going to do it if all is done. Yes, this is from the book. And in the book, I highlight, so what you'll see here at the top, right there at the top, you see the VM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, right? So that's the standardized language. What I lay now at the bottom, I'm saying is, in this case, I'm going to target accounts, have a conversation. I want to shorten the sales cycle. I want some executive referral and grow the deal. What I'm now going to do, I'm going to overlay a targeted campaign in which VM1 is targets, which VM2 is marketing qualified accounts. VM3 is opportunities, and so on and so forth. If I now compare that to, for example, a low touch, high velocity GTM motion, I'm using different language. I'm seeing that is based on prospects. I'm using the more familiar language of MQL and SQL and SAL. Now, and prospect to MQL is based on thought leadership conversion. And MQL to SQL is often based on email sequencing, staying in touch, the nurturing campaigns. And so what you'll see down here, you start to see, oh, now I call it the win in that sector, right? You may call it the close, you may call it the win. If that GTM motion, you want to call it that and standardize that on, fine. As long as it maps to that VM5. That's the way. Now I have a standardized language, VM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I map. If you're a RevOps person, you ask your RevOps, map each GTM motion that we have, whatever language the people are using, map to that. Because now I get a standardized data model. Now I can start looking at metrics and see what trend lines are. And these are trend lines that I'm looking at. I need to know what the trend lines are that my business is going through. I need to know, is my volume going up or down? And I don't mean my volume going up and down overall. I mean, is my targeted campaign volume going up, down? Are my PQLs going up and down? And so on. So I need specific metrics. This machine that we just ran into the ground over the past years is a finely tuned machine. Small changes make huge impact. You have heard me say this before. I need trend lines on the conversion rates. I need to know per GTM campaign, what are we seeing down there? This is not complex. Your RevOps team is capable of doing that. Okay, so that is how we are now getting these models to work together. Okay. Questions? And I'm going to see Jonathan, Chris, Joe, Marcus, Mike, if there's questions for the next 30 seconds, a minute, I'm closely looking at the chat window. Feel free to chat and type it in. But I'm closely looking, and all of you others that are on the line. if you have a question, I'm looking for it. Okay. And so, and I'll wait for the question. I'll just, like I'll summarize this all up. That is how this data model works. Okay. What you'll see historically, we've had a very departmental approach, that vertical line. And we're now, in order to make this work, we have to have a horizontal approach. We have to think about, okay, which campaign does it come from? Not what did market, how many SQLs did marketing generate? No, how much did that campaign work and how was the handoff and so on? You have to think in GTM motion. Today, there's a series of motions, but like some of you may refer to them as the enterprise motion or the SMB motion or the PLG motion, stuff like that. These are motions. We have called them standardized, no touch, low touch, medium touch, high touch, and dedicated touch. These are the ways how we think about that. What are examples of VM metrics from 6 to 8 that seems too easy to use on a GRR and measuring the onboarding stage? Yes. So let's go back. Let's go dive into the number and hone in on that one, Ben. Okay, fantastic question. So we're going to hone in on that. So as we are going to, and write it because the next slide is, we're going to dive into that. Okay, I'm going to dive into that. But before I do that, the key takeaway, recurring revenue begins where the marketing and sales funnel ends. That means that recurring revenue, which is the result of recurring impact, is not covered by the marketing and sales funnel, simply meaning we need to establish recurring impact as the language for the customer. And as a result, we need to create a model for that. Voila, the bow tie. This is important because there's no other company, no other person in the company who can make this decision right now beyond the CEO. The CEO is the only one who says, how are we going to structure this? And so as many of us struggle, the CEOs are still on the VC mindset, which primarily is generate rapid growth at lower cost, which is a fantastic, but it's a very inward focused mindset. It doesn't help us to get our growth going. That shift is not going to happen under normal circumstances. Being myself at Winning by Design, we have the same thing. You got to battle this. And so the CEO is the one who needs to understand there's two forces pulling on him, the VC forces and the market forces. And the market forces, based on this chart, are telling, hey, folks, the lower cost option by itself is not working. That's the struggle that we got to point out to our leaders. And if those of you are leaders, that's the point that you got to get to. And so that's the problem that we are running into right now. And that tells us like, hey, this is the CEO responsibility. Problematic. So I'm going to go into examples. Now, what I'm going to do down here, I'm going to switch. So if those of you want to, you can follow this at the right upper corner. There's a QR code. I'll make it. I can make it bigger. Yeah, there it is. Oh, I like that. Yes. There. Oh, I don't know if that works. I don't think it works, but QR code. Also type in benchsites.com/winningbydesign. Benchsites.com/winningbydesign. Heck, look, I'm the master of my own destiny. Why can I not do this? Of course I can do this. There you go. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my Chrome browser. And in my Chrome browser, where is my boat? Oh no, I had it here. Here's my bow tie metrics. Now what we're going to see here is we're going to see the bow tie, and you'll see all the metrics, CR1, CR2, zooming in a little bit. I know it's going to get ugly when I'm going, but just so you know, you're familiar with what we're seeing. There we go. Okay. So now if I want to, and I start simple, if I want a particular metric down here, you can enter your metrics and you can get it. Currently, we have 288 companies have supported with their metrics. So I can go into CR4. In our case, CR4 is win rate. I'm going to click on CR4. Okay. You need to, so folks, when you sign up, it asks you to, it gives you an anonymous name, like Happy Monkey or something like that, right? Or Busy Rhino. And when it does that, you get essentially the, you log in, you get your data. So your data is anonymized, but they still know it's you, right? It knows you, so you can, in the future, compare it. Let me see, where's a spot where I'm in the least amount of, okay. I'm in the way everywhere, so I'm just gonna undo me. So what you'll see here on the right is I can now start looking at CR4, in this case, was on average is 22% in the market. This is across all filters, all revenue ranges, all ARR growth, rapid, fast, all deal sizes, and for the years. If I say like, hey, for my GTM motion, enterprise GTM motion, which sells at like 60 to 100, sorry, that's the wrong one. Oh, if I go to there, a 50, if you have a 60K motion, right? And I apply that and I hit all, hit filter, what I'm gonna see is I'm gonna see that move and it's gonna give me, it's building, you don't see it, but I see the bar moving at the top. It's analyzing data. And the second it will tell me, oh, in that range, it's 20%. I have entered my own data. So if I want to show how I compare, I can see how winning by design fits. We're at the 59th percentile of this set with 21%. And so what I can now say is like, oh, if I want more of that data, or if I want to go, I can see where does the data sample come from. I have a histogram that shows to me where the data come from. Okay, it is now selected at the top, data at the top. It tells me which filter I have by category, blah, blah, blah. So it tells me where the sample size comes from. Okay, down here, I can now benchmark myself. This is a functional, I need to know where I'm at. Now, for example, if I say, hey, what was the difference between 22 and prior and 2023? It's filtering. It says, hey, the win rate in CR4 on average was 24, and what is it now in 2023? It is 20%. The win rate has dropped on average by 4%, which is what we have all experienced. Okay, folks. What I'm trying to say down here is we are now able to start slicing down in real time, give you metrics, so that when we're a consulting firm, the number one question, not number one, but one of the top questions we get is like, hey, how are we doing compared to our competitors? What's the win rate in enterprise? Is it going down? Because we see a significant going down. Well, we just published this. And so you can now important for those of you who know data, here at the bottom, it gives you your sample size. So there's 84 samples, which is irrelevant. I mean, like, I know you want to see 10,000 samples, but folks, normally people say like, just give me a few samples, 2 or 3 is good enough. So 84, but always look at that sample size. If it gets below 10, 15, then I go like, okay, you probably have to filter way too narrow. You got to open it back up a little bit, because now you're getting into the, okay, now we're going to what that question was, is I want to know where NRR and GRR fits in, okay? And so what we see here is NRR is measured over the total. For those of you who know, obviously what NRR is, it includes renewal, expansion, and contraction. And so it sits down here, I achieve impact, I grow and I expand. NRR covers that. GRR excludes that and is in that CR6 range. So if I click on that CR6, I'm going to get my GRR metrics. And you're going to see, logically, winning by design, I didn't enter the data for that, therefore it doesn't show anything. So I'll include that. But what you'll see down here, at the current rate in 2023, we see the GRR has gone down. If I say all, or if I say prior to NR, I expect it to be higher. Oh, 89%. So that means that people in 22 also had about a 90% GRR for those who reported. 35 companies reported their metrics and brought in 89%. Now, there's a couple of public companies in here, so that indicate to you, this is GRR, right? So 90% on an annual contract. That's where that metric comes in. Again, I go back to the top, back to summary, and I'm spoofing it, and I'm back there. If I could take a look at NRR, clicking, again, it builds a little bit. I now see that 22 and prior, NRR was 115%. If I wanted to take a look at what happened in 2023, that should have come down. Yeah, 105%. So there you go. So, and that is sample size, 217 companies reported their NRR rate. Okay. This, folks, is, we are now standardizing, and that's the idea, because all of you are reporting your metrics using a standardized data model. I can now start comparing, and I can start creating math and run the, we can now start running and calculating. I can't do that if I don't have a standardized data model. The number one thing that we have to work with companies, it says like, look, you're mixing 2 campaigns. One works and the other doesn't work, but you don't know which one. You have to literally go anecdotally and go like salesperson by salesperson, what's working and what's not working. Yes, you get a sample. I get that, and that's good. That gets you going, but you don't know how much more do I need? How many more leads do I need? How many, like it becomes very, very opinionated, very, correlation driven, not causation driven. That is what we're trying to accomplish down here. And what I'm going to show you is how that can build like into a growth formula. What you see here is how we built a growth formula. In this growth formula, this is a particular growth formula for a GTM motion. This is what, you know, at Winning by Design, I'm going to zoom in so we can see a little bit closer. This is what Winning by Design, our architects do. They calculate, they use your metrics. This was a real scenario. 284 leads converted at 3%. These were 284, let's call them MQLs, converted to 9 opportunities. 1 got lost during qualification. A win rate of 32% resulted in 2.5 wins, who brought in on an average sales price with a discount of 23%, brought in $18,000, generating $45,000. Now what we are doing, we're creating what we call a growth formula. So what you'll see look at what is happening here. I'm normalizing on the commit and saying, in order to get 1 commit, I divide that 284, I divide it by 114, 284 divided by 2.5 gives me exactly 1 win, right? I mean, that's formulaic. I don't want you to freak out about it. All I want you to see is now I got my growth formula. In order to get $18,000, $408, I need to get 114 leads, converted an average 3.2%, qualify 15.5% out, win at an average 32%, give a maximum discount of 23% to generate $18,000 commit fee. Now I'm going to use that. And this is important for those of you who are running data. I want you to understand, this is where the market is going. We are going to a 5-year LTV ratio. We cannot calculate LTV based on NRR. We're going to, like any other financial market, we're going to establish what is your 5-year LTV, your 3-year LTV, or your 7-year. But I am I'm putting a cap on the horizon and say, we're just going to measure what your revenue is, that $18,000 based on your retention and expansion numbers is generating over a 5-year LTV, $105,000. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm running my cost against that. I'm adding up my acquisition cost. I'm adding up my retention cost. I'm adding up total, and I can now calculate how much profit I'm making on a 5-year LTV or on a 5-year LTV horizon. And I know the assumptions. It's all mapped against the data model. This is revenue architecture. This is how we design, calculate. This is how bridges are built. This is how towering skyscrapers are built. This is how hospitals operate. This is everything. Every organization works the same. We need to learn how to do this. And some of you are already doing large parts of this, right? It's all I'm trying to say is like, hey, now we're putting a structure to it so we can normalize against it so that Joe Sanchez from one company can talk to Jonathan Moss over coffee. They are hanging out with each other and they can actually correlate information with each other. It's not like, oh, you know what? My ABM campaign is doing fantastic. Oh my gosh, PLG is doing so. Like, dude, you're like different solutions, different markets, different things, different measurement. We are not going to move this industry forward if we keep going. And obviously, all of this is fueled by hero stories at major events, right? The hero stories at these corporate events, which are good in part, motivating. You're going to be served 100 hero stories and no data story. Okay. I'm going to stop it there. And what you're going to see and what we're trying to do with this, we're trying to create an industry consortium. We're trying to bring all this together. That is not just Winning by Design, not just this thinking. This is Bench Sites. Bench Sites is doing this. We have Pavilion is training their teams on revenue architecture. We're rolling out the Bowtie with the GTM consortium. Open, standardized models constantly. Make it open, make it standardized. Like, get everybody on it. Like, we're not arguing that the marketing and sales funnel is not fantastic. It is fantastic. We just need to expand it. We're just keeping that. This is where we're growing. With that said, let me see if I think that was it. Sarah, did I miss anything?
I'd love to just add to what you just mentioned. So you mentioned the GTM consortium. I want to make sure that everybody here is aware of what that is, because we probably didn't cover that in detail too much yet. If you were not at GTM 2023 in Nashville with Pavilion's event, So the GTM Consortium is an independent alliance that we've formed that's dedicated to offering this standardized approach, promoting this bow tie that Jacco has just been talking about. And so if you want to hear from other GTM leaders and revenue leaders who have actually started, successfully implementing these models, the first time that you can do that is going to be GTM Consortium's first event, which is happening on November 14th. I'll post the link in the chat here, and we're going to send out all this information to everyone who's registered. But it's called Pavilion's Elevate GTM event. Anyone can join. You don't have to be a Pavilion member. But there are going to be a few folks there who are presenting that day who are going to talk specifically about how they're using the bow tie and measuring these metrics and how they've used it to grow their business. So I think there will be some great example case studies there that will be helpful as you sort of embark upon this journey if you're just getting started. So we'll put all the information there. And what Jacco is showing here is the landing page for the GTM Consortium, so you can see who's involved and who's contributing to that.
Yeah, and I think that what the key down here is that we standardize on. I think we can't run all these factories and everybody runs their own factory. That's the reason why we have a 1.7% success rate at this point in time and declining, right? We need our trade, like any other trade, needs to start adopting to standard operating procedures, and we are far. I mean, like, I do not know how much worse it needs to get before we are hearing the clarion call for this, right? Like. However, I believe also, and then I'll let you folks go, that this is a fantastic moment in order to switch. The way what got us here is fantastic. It was fantastic. We got here. Now we need to move forward. My main point that I want to bring up in today, and before I let you go, is do not sustainable growth in itself, aka cost efficient growth. And they're not the same. I get that. I'm just talking about that the same, but they're not the same. They're a little bit different. The capital efficient growth and sustainable growth by itself is not the solution. It's going to oversteer you to the wrong direction. You got to have that quality mindset. Quality in recurring revenue equals impact. Why? Because you deliver the recurring impact, you're going to get the recurring revenue. That mindset, that means that you got to establish an impact mindset. Where does the impact mindset come from? Well, marketing and sales funnel stops where recurring revenue begins. So we need to extend the marketing and sales funnel into what we call a bow tie. We now are focused the company on bow tie. And these are the three things you can do. Start on impact, adopt the bow tie across your organization, get the team up to date on this. Get as many people as you can up to date on this. We need to change this market to a bow tie from a funnel. That's as simple as it gets. That's a really simple start. With that said, and with Jonathan providing excellent insights, I will remain. I'll let you folks all go. I'll give you 4 minutes on your agenda back. I'll remain here for another like 2 minutes, 3 minutes to see if there's any question that any of you wants to get off mute and want to ask a question. But other than that, this is the time for graceful exit. Thank you all for attending. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. The book is out on whatever second week of November or something like that. With that said, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jonathan.
Awesome as always.